concept cars and new model launches galore, we're able to travel to all four corners of the world without ever leaving the main show halls here in Geneva. Peugeot has been having a good time in the small car market just lately, and you can't help thinking that the company is only just beginning to enjoy the success of the 206 properly. Now they've had plenty of time to get over the surprise that is. Not that there was any reason to suspect that it would be any less than good, but it's been a runaway seller, and that wasn't really part of their original expectations for the car. Part of that may be the halo effect from success in the World Rally Championship, which, once again, Peugeot could hardly have imagined would be so immediate and dramatic. Indeed, few of its larger and more experienced competition rivals can have expected to be blown away by a super mini-sized car. But now, everyone has to have one if they want to be competitive. Newly liveried in red for the coming season, the rally car has probably gained a new lease of life in marketing terms, and irrespective of whether there's another world crown in the offing, the old adage, win on Sunday, sell on Monday, will continue to benefit sales of what is now quite an old model and which Peugeot must be worrying about replacing. On sale since September 1998, the 206 still manages to look fresh enough, partly because the rest of the Super Mini class has only just caught up. But no car maker replaces the jewel in its sales crown without suffering a nervous twitch or two. The old 806 was quite well liked, though it may well have lacked a bit in the way of refinement, but the platform was retained for the creation of the 807. The lack of refinement's been addressed. The new wagon rides with all the cushion flexibility you might associate with French cars, and it comes with a useful amount of kit as well. Add to that a range of new engines which managed to bustle along quite successfully in the higher reaches of the rev range, and a lot of the missing refinement has been found. But the problem for the 807 comes not from within, but outside. The other platform sharing exercise, and remember that Peugeot is also a Fiat and a Citroën in other clothing, the other combo is the all-conquering Galaxy and Sharon duo, the market leaders against which the Peugeot is competitively priced, but maybe not competitively styled. The others are competent, competitive, and arguably much better looking. But Peugeot styling is far from being the ugly duckling, and if the 206 didn't prove the point, the natty little 307cc ought to do the job. Shown as a concept a year ago, the production car was unveiled this time around, and the general consensus has been good. It's a bit bigger and stronger than the hatch, and that means it doesn't suffer the normal chop-top drawbacks of scuttle shake and lack of space quite as much as it might have done otherwise. Cute and well priced, it should do a good job for Peugeot in the sales charts and the showroom, a nice halo model for the salesman to draw on. Rather like this. Also on the Geneva stand, but a long way removed from the production models that surrounded it, was the Hogger. It's strictly concept, with no production future whatever, and that's really not a big surprise. It may well be the ultimate beach buggy, as some observers have described it, and it may well have amazing performance on the loose. But it's still just an expensive toy. Powered by two diesel engines, one front and one rear, it delivers 360 horsepower, plus enough torque to drive up the side of the Eiffel Tower in third gear with no problems. How do we know this? Because though this is a proper concept car in every sense of the word, it's also a runner. And we do mean run. Not just for show, the Hogger is a fully working vehicle. In other words, it goes, oh, and that's goes, as in very quickly, putting a smile on every face.
Stop the rain.
There's satellite navigation if you get lost, and a computer inclinometer to tell you if the hills are too steep. Bet you don't take time to look at it.
Rain. Stop the rain. Why does it rain on down when I'm waiting for the sunshine? Why does it rain on down when I'm waiting for the sunshine? The sun will shine. The sun will shine. The sunshine. Oh, the sunshine.
If you can't tell by looking at his cars, Giuseppe Fornassari has a motorsport background, which is why he's built something that he says is capable of tackling the Paris-Dakar and even winning it. And yet, as we shall see, is a reasonable-looking off-roader with the kind of prowess and quality that allow it to stand alongside things like the X5 or Cayenne with no need for shame. And there's some justification for his claims. The thing sits up on double wishbone suspension designed for it by the same people that did the same job on the Dakar-winning Mitsubishis, and it's all attached to a tube-frame chassis. Big Brembos do the stopping, and you'll probably need them because Fornassari chose the small block V8 engine from Corvette to do the power. And you may be aware that the term small block is an Americanism and means nothing of the sort. 5.7 litres, 450 horsepower, all in a vehicle weighing 1,500 kilos. We're talking standstill to 60 miles an hour in around 4 seconds, and a top speed not unadjacent to 170 miles an hour. It's fast, in other words, and it's big too. Well, not a long wheelbase, but wide and quite high, thanks to the off-road style ground clearances, so it quite looks the part when you stand near it. Just the one so far, but a limited production run is being planned, but at a price, of course. If it doesn't beat Cayenne and anything else, you can bet your bottom dollar, and you might have to, that it will cost rather more. Over on the Kia stand, however, we're talking value for money, as always, though there was one surprise. First, the normal stuff. If anything called Epirus, if that's how you pronounce it, can be considered normal. I don't think so. But name-calling aside, the new Epirus replaces Kia's previous executive saloon, the Enterprise, and no, Mr. Spock, we're not doing the jokes today. Like Enterprise, this car is destined for home markets only. In other words, it will only be available in left-hand drive and will almost certainly never be seen outside its Asian home. But it's here in Geneva to show off Kia's latest design thinking, and we have to say that it's not all that bad. Not bad at all, and there's certainly a very attractive rear end. There's a good degree of European modernity in its lines, which should come as no surprise since the Kia Hyundai Design Centre has a number of Europeans on its staff. And when you come to look at it, the front view is pretty appealing as well, which, regretfully, is rather more than we can say about the real surprise on the stand this week, the Kia Slice. Well, perhaps that's being a little unkind, but the Slice is another representation of a workhorse that's fun to drive as car makers desperately search for the right combination of looks, cleverness and performance that will provide the answers all the marketing alchemists are searching for and turn base metal into gold. stripped of the clever wording, it's a biggish sort of hatchback executed in the current idiom, all squared off ends with steeply raked windscreen and funny little headlights. It has the versatility of an SUV, say Kia, without the fuel consumption and handling penalties. That's because it isn't an SUV, it's just a well-packaged hatchback or an estate, whichever you prefer. It's not that we're singling Kia out for special criticism here, the slice is just one of many. But, like the rest of its ilk, it brings us no fresh ideas nor any clever solutions to the age-old problem. How do you make a Volkswagen Charan look like a Ferrari 360, accelerate like a Pagani Zonda, go up mountains like a Range Rover and cost less than £20,000? Now that is a concept car. And that was Geneva, or almost anyway. We have one more concept from the Far East to consider and one more real steel production car as well. Concept and production cars from the Far East, plus a very pretty Italian pair. That's Daewoo first, and then the dramatic-looking Fioravanti. Now part of the GM brotherhood of car makers, Daewoo has the chance to continue expanding in as many markets and as many ways as possible. Especially relevant, perhaps, as the traditional view of a dealer-led sales organisation is gradually eroded, as much by the internet as by visions of a brave new future as seen through the eyes of Daewoo. But this is exactly that, Daewoo's vision of the future, called Scope and intended to meet the needs of the same mythical family of four that spends all its free time together in far-flung mountain regions, picnicking, mountain biking and surfing in the summer, and just snowboarding in the winter. However, that said, we quite like the Scope. It's a neat enough design that looks okay to us, and things like the remote control for the door locks and the stereo system, that's very handy, saving the need for a boombox when you're out in the wilds. Just turn the stereo up very loud and then blend in with the scenery in your usual way. However, let's leave the apparent conflict between the desire to visit nature and the necessity for destroying it in order to get there in the first place, and concentrate on Daewoo's newest road car, the Pininfarina designed Nubira. It's not strictly speaking true that this car was designed by Pininfarina, rather that it was a cooperative venture between the Italian styling house and the GM Daewoo Design Centre in Korea. And a lot of observers have already remarked on the similarity between the new car and existing GM products such as Astra or even Vectra. In fact, the Nubira is almost exactly Astra size, and there is a definite hint of Opel's current design language in some aspects of its appearance. All of which amount to a compliment, of course, because that makes it a very acceptable looking car to European eyes. Inside, well, more of the same really, although here especially, the Nubira is unable to escape from the truth of its low-budget ambitions. It should cost a great deal less than Astra in whichever market it's sold, and no amount of split-folding seats and attractive specification is going to conceal the fact. That's not a problem, obviously, to anyone shopping with a low-price objective, any more than the fairly small choice of engines which are available at launch. That's fairly normal, and you can expect additions to the 2-unit range. The 1.6 delivers 109 horsepower, the 1.8 a more useful 122, both of them 16-valve units, and there's a 4-speed automatic available, but it's only as an option and it only comes with the larger engine. Both of them show a respectable return on fuel. And both of them show a fairly respectable ride handling solution thanks to some fairly intense development work in the UK. Nubira was first shown in Seoul over a year ago and has since been on sale in Korea as Lacetti. Exports to the USA and elsewhere have already begun under the Nubira nameplate, but exports to Europe were held over until the car had been thoroughly tested on European and especially British roads. Well known as the most discerning and demanding market in the world in terms of ride and handling, Europe was an important market, and weeks of driving here has led to a refinement of the suspension design and, interestingly, to the creation of a tyre especially designed and built for this car, because all the off-the-shelf solutions were found to be, in the end, unsatisfactory. Those thousands of test miles on the road in real-life driving have given Nubira an improved steering feel and a better ride with improved lateral stability and reduced body roll. It handles the winding country lanes better than it did before, and it soaks up the motorway miles with a lot more grace. Now the front-wheel drive saloon is judged suitable for sale in Europe, and its launch in Geneva signalled the beginning of deliveries which will see it available in the summer, when it should be fairly well received. Plasticky trim aside, the new Nubira is big, bigger all over than its predecessor, but especially in the rear, bigger than most of its class competitors, and it should measure up to be one of the most spacious vehicles in that class. There's lots more evidence of GM input and resources if you look around for it, including 2 front airbags and 2 at the side, 4-channel ABS and, interestingly, traction control as well, presumably just there to kill off all that frantic front-wheel scrabbling when accelerating out of the bends. This was the first new car to emerge under the new GM regime and shows the first signs of big manufacturer muscle which will spread across the whole range and make these cars even more attractive propositions than they were when they were only cheap. Fioravanti were back at Geneva with a reworking of the F100, which was first shown almost 5 years ago and which looks every bit as desirable today as it did then. Smart work from the Italian company, which started life in architecture in the late 80s, moved into car design soon afterwards, and produced this tribute to Enzo Ferrari in 1998. Bringing it to Geneva, the first time it's been shown outside Italy, so we can see how long it's taken everyone else to catch up, wasn't a bad idea. And better still to bring the somewhat later Barchetta design with its aerodynamically shaped windscreen intended to smooth the airflow over the cockpit, keep it attached and let it escape rearwards, thereby avoiding the wind buffeting normally associated with convertible motoring. Though each vehicle has a specific set of research criteria attached to its construction, they're all still very pretty, even this one, given the unlovely designation Yak. It's not an exercise in off-roading though, but a continuation of a lighting research project which was begun with the Volus sports car 2 years ago. Once again, employing a very high-powered LED system to provide brilliant lighting from a small source, Yak demonstrates not just how design can be influenced by technology or simply set free by it, but also how manufacturing costs can be reduced. This system reduces the number of components by half. And here's another car that's previously been confined to Italy, even though it too was built 5 years ago. Dubbed NICE, an acronym for Natural, Young Car and Economical, which is a little bit precarious to say the least, it was designed to demonstrate how to create a car manufacturing process in underdeveloped countries using a basic mass-produced floor pan with engine and a selection of bolt-on plastic panels. The idea was to keep it cheap and easy, though the company accepts it's more likely to find a future as a cheap fun car in overdeveloped nations than it is for its original design brief to be fulfilled. But the rapid expansion of the leisure vehicle market means that there may well be a realistic demand for cars like this, especially in warmer climates, which doesn't, incidentally, include Geneva at this time of year. Luckily, once you get inside the hole, the white heat of creativity keeps you up to temperature.